قل هو الله احد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد قل هو الله دعا ہے کہ اللہ پاک ان کے درجات کو بلند کرے اور ان سے جو زندگی میں لغزشات ہوئی ہیں ان کو معاف کرے اور ان کے جنت الفردوس میں اعلیٰ مقام ان کو عطا کرے. آمین ثم آمین. ہم اپنی پریزنٹیشن شروع کرتے ہیں. ہاؤ COVID-19 ہاؤ ٹو اسیس پیشنٹ رسک. And this is my disclosure. This is an unconditional possible because of unconditional educational support by Surveyor Pharma. مجھے یاد ہے جب سعدیہ نے مجھ سے بات کی تھی اور بیسیکلی آپ کو پتہ ہے کہ سرویر کی مین پروڈکٹس کارڈیو میٹابولک ہیں، تو ان کی اوبویسلی ہر فارما کی خواہش یہی ہوتی ہے کہ ان کی پروڈکٹ سے ریلیٹڈ بات کی جائے. لیکن جب میں نے ان سے یہ کہا کہ کرونا آج کا ایشو ہے اور اس کے اوپر ہی بات ہونا چاہیے، تو وداؤٹ اینی سیکنڈ تھاٹ انہوں نے کہا کہ ہم اپنی کسی پروڈکٹ کے بارے میں چاہیں گے بھی نہیں کہ بات ہو، جو آج کے ایشوز ہیں ان کے اوپر ہی بات ہونا چاہیے. سو آئی ایم ریئلی گریٹفل ٹو سرویر فارما اینڈ آف کورس سعدیہ کہ جنہوں نے یہ پاسبل بنایا. گراؤنڈ رولز ہمارے یہ ہیں کہ یہ تقریباً 20-25 منٹ کی پریزنٹیشن ہے جس میں مین ٹارگٹ کچھ ہیں جو میں ابھی آپ کو بتاتا ہوں، لیکن اس کے اینڈ پہ کچھ لائیو کیسز ہیں. یہ وہ کیسز ہیں جو کہ ہم مریض واقعی دیکھتے رہے ہیں. ان میں سے کچھ 7 پیشنٹس ہیں جن کو سلیکٹ کیا ہے. ان کا تھوڑا سا ڈیٹا آپ کے ساتھ شیئر کرنا ہے، جس کے بعد اس ڈیٹا کو شیئر کرنے کے لیے سعدیہ آپ کے جو چیٹ باکس ہوگا اس میں ایک گوگل فارم آپ کو لنک شیئر کریں گی. آپ سے درخواست یہ ہوگی کہ آپ لائیو کیسز کے وقت ان گوگل فارمز کو کلک کر لیجیے گا. آپ کی کمپیوٹر اسکرین پہ وہ سوال آ جائیں گے اور اس میں سے جو بہتر آپشن آپ کو لگتی ہو سیویرٹی کے لحاظ سے کرونا کے پیشنٹ کی، آپ اس کو کلک کر دیجیے گا. سو اس طرح ہمیں اندازہ ہو سکے گا کہ پریزنٹیشن کے بعد پیشنٹ کو اسیس کرنے کے لیے جو آپ کی یعنی جو نو ہاؤ ہے اس میں کتنی ہمیں اس کو ڈسکشن میں فائدہ ہو سکے گا. سو اس کو سعدیہ آخر میں ٹیک اپ کریں گی. اینڈ آئی تھنک وہ کیونکہ 7 سوال ہیں تو ہم 1 منٹ کے لیے اس لنک کو شیئر کریں گے اور اس کے بعد 1 سے 2 منٹ کی اس کے اوپر ڈسکشن ہوگی آپ کے رسپانسز کو دیکھتے ہوئے. سو جتنی جلدی آئی ایم شیور آپ رسپونڈ کریں گے اتنا ہی جلدی ہمارے لیے ممکن ہوگا کہ اس کی ڈسکشن کر سکیں. نیڈز اسیسمنٹ کچھ کہنے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے کہ کرونا بڑی تیزی کے ساتھ ہمارے ملک میں پھیلا ہوا ہے. اللہ کا شکر ہے کہ کچھ ڈاؤن ورڈ ٹرینڈز نظر آنا شروع ہو گئے ہیں، لیکن اس کے باوجود جو پیشنٹ کی اور ڈاکٹروں کی اور ہیلتھ کیئر پروفیشنلز کی جو ضروریات ہیں اس سلسلے میں علم کی، وہ یقیناً نہ صرف یہ کہ ان کو مزید بہتر سے بہتر بنانے کی ضرورت ہے، بلکہ اس کو امپلیمنٹ کرنے کے لیے ہمیں ضرورت ہے کہ ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ اس طرح کے انٹریکشن زیادہ سے زیادہ کر سکیں. So learning objectives are that by the end of presentation, the participants will be able to understand, one, the pathophysiology of COVID-19, and second is how to diagnose a patient of COVID-19. Then what is the management plan for different groups. ہم ڈیٹیل میں مینجمنٹ کو ڈسکس نہیں کریں گے، صرف ہم آئیڈینٹیفائی کریں گے اس بات کو کہ کون سا رسک گروپ ہے اور اس کو کس قسم کی مینجمنٹ ریکوائرڈ ہونا چاہیے. دین COVID-19 اینڈ ڈائبٹیز، اس سے ریلیٹڈ کیا ہمیں ابھی تک معلوم ہے، اینڈ ان دا اینڈ لائیو کیسز آف COVID-19. So what is the pathophysiology? If you see this picture in front of you, in the extreme left side, you can see that there are different portions of the COVID virus. It's a single RNA virus and it has some spike proteins on its surface. ہم اس کی further detail میں نہیں جائیں گے structure کی، बताने का मकसद ये है कि these spike proteins actually bind with the ACE2 receptors, which helps in actually uh, moving into the cell, host cell. और इस host cell के अंदर basically ribosomes, they help in not only proteolysis, but then the genomic RNA, when released, replicates and the proteins are translated. And this all helps in the formation of new multiple proteins as well as similar RNAs. और नतीजा नए RNA viruses जो SARS CoV-2 के हैं वो बनते चले जाते हैं and then they are released from the cell. So basically एक सिंगल सेल के अंदर मूव करने के बाद इस सेल को डिस्ट्रॉय करता हुआ ये वायरस बाहर निकलता है और अब मल्टीपल कॉपीज इसकी मौजूद होती हैं. Basically at the time of entry it is the day 0 और फिर in next 1 to 2 days which may extend up to 4 5 days जिसमें viral replication take place in the airway cells and this viral replication in the airway cells it leads to the second phase of the whole process in which actually it is the not only the direct activation of the cytokine uh, through the lectin pathway, but also immune complex mediated classical pathway, and also toll-like receptors, which are acting as an alternative pathway. So this all leads to basically activation of C3 and activation of C5, leading to attraction of neutrophils and macrophages and release of different chemotactic factors as well as different chemicals in the body. And this includes interleukin 1, 6, 8, 21, tumor necrosis factor, and CCL2, which leads to cytokine release storm and accumulation of neutrophils and macrophages, which in turn starts damaging the primary organ, which is the lung. And with the passage of time, because these organs are multiple organs are involved, including the kidney and the heart. So it is a multi-organ failure, which later on results. So initial up to day 4, 5, it is only the viral replication process which is active. But with the passage of time, after about fifth day, it is the cytokine storm, if it is present and exaggerated, then it results in the formation of different cytokine release syndrome symptoms. And at the day 7 to 14, if this is further aggravating, then it leads to ARDS and multi-organ failure. And here you can see that basically uh, viral entry ACE inhibitors, if they are given, it can block, or in the viral replication phase, it is the different antivirals which are said to be effective. No not confirmed yet. That just decreases probably the duration of the illness. And then there are different types of pathways specific inhibitors. We all know anti-C3, anti-C5, and anti-interleukin 6, 1, and interferons as well. So this all pathway, if basically from the viral replication phase, entry into the cytokine storm, if we are able to block here and the cytokine storm does not take place, then probably the patient's symptoms are regressed and patient doesn't go into the lethal complications of respiratory distress. Coming to the diagnosis, the gold standard for the diagnosis is RT-PCR, and the sensitivity depends on the site of sampling. Here we can see that for all areas, different areas, whether oral, nasal, nasopharyngeal, or nasopharyngeal as well as a comparator to different sites, saliva or mid-turbinate, you can see that if it is positive, then the specificity is almost 99 to 100%. But the sensitivity varies when the sample is taken from different sites. For oral, it is about 56%. For nasal, it is 76%. Nasopharyngeal, it is 97%. And for a comparator, it is 95%. For saliva alone, it is 85%. And for mid-turbinate sampling, it is 100%. So here we can see that if the sample is probably taken from the nasopharyngeal area, then the sensitivity is very high. And mid-turbinate is probably the best sampling which can take place. So once it is positive, it is likely that the specificity is almost 100%. But a negative test does not rule out that the virus is not present. So it has to be repeated, and we have to find out. And at times, there are different theories circulating now that the viral particles, even the damaged and distorted viral particles, can also give a positive result. Similarly, if we talk about the current criteria, then we see that the respiratory symptoms alone, which include cough, shortness of breath, or breathing difficulty, or at least two of the following features, if they are present, then it is likely that this patient has coronavirus, which includes repeated shaking with chills, muscle aches, headache, sore throat, new loss of taste or smell sensation, nausea or vomiting, and loose stools. So, one of these and any two of these, if is present, then it is likely that the patient has got coronavirus. So, this is the symptomatology based criteria for the diagnosis, other than the RT-PCR. And if we talk, quite a burning issue these days that whether antibody testing should be done or not. If we understand this picture, which is very prevalent in different groups, I know that the virus itself, the RT-PCR, when it is once it is present in the body day zero, it is completely negative on day 28. But of course there can be variations. This is the knowledge which we know up till now, but there can be variation with the passage of time, and the peak you can see is achieved somewhere around day 14. Between day 12 and day 14, somewhere the peak is reached. So this suggests that the highest number of the viral particles will be present, and the infectivity will be highest when someone is around the day 14 of from the start. And the incubation period usually varies, but it is taken that it is between 5 and 7 days. So the viral particles are sufficient in number, causing symptomatology when a patient becomes symptomatic. So we take it as day 5. So we can see that already 5 days have passed when someone develops the symptoms. This means that the onset of symptoms and then the presence of the, you can see that the IgM usually just suggests that the infectivity is highest in this period. And here you can also see that it reflects with the peak of the RT-PCR. So if IgM is present in somebody, then it reflects that the viral particles are at their peak and the infectivity period is very high. So you can see that since the IgM falls at date number 21, it is likely that the infectivity of the patient has also declined. If the PCR has not disappeared completely, it is likely that he is not infective anymore. But of course, this is all theoretical, and we need more confirmatory studies to confirm this. About the IgG, if you can see here, that it starts to rise after the day 14. So it starts to rise after the peak has already reached. So the viral PCR is in the following titer, and this IgG just suggests that the patient has been exposed. Either the patient is in the recovery phase, or it is likely that the patient has already had a previous exposure, as here you can see after day 28 that the IgG is still positive. So presence of IgG does not mean that the virus has completely been cleared, but it does suggest that patient has been exposed. And this is also what is suggested here in the different comparator of these PCR, IgM, and IgG, that if the alone PCR is present, then patient may be in the window period of infection or maybe in infection. Presence of both PCR and IgM means that patient is in the early phase, stage of infection, And if all three are present, then patient may be in the active stage. Presence of PCR and IgG means that patient may be in the late or recurrent stage of infection. Alone IgM means that patient may be in early stage of infection, and the PCR result may be false negative. And alone IgG also means that patient may have had a past infection and has recovered. And both IgM and IgG means that patient may be in the recovery phase of the infection, or the PCR result may be false negative. So talking of the cytokine release, these definitions are not validated, and the markers, they do not rise at the same time. So if you find any one marker which is high and the other is low, you have to compare it clinically with the patient condition, his symptomatology, and the different signs, and then decide whether it is significant or not. And they may also rise without any clinical worsening, which has an unclear significance. Similarly, markers are non-specific, like the neutrophil lymphocyte ratio, which is much talked about, that if it is more than 3.13, it is quite significant about the prognosis. But this may not be very useful when the steroids are used, or patient is already having bacterial infection, because we know that steroids lead to neutrophil rise in the neutrophil count, and bacterial infection also do the same. So in the presence of moderate, severe, or critical disease, the ferritin level usually is more than 1000 and rising in the last 24 hours. Similarly, if the ferritin is more than 2000 in patient with high flow oxygen or ventilation, it is more significant and signifies the severity of the disease. Similarly, absolute lymphocyte count, if it is less than 800, or lymphocyte percentage is less than 20, or neutrophil lymphocyte ratio of more than 5, and any two of the following are present along with it, like ferritin more than 700 and rising in the last 24 hours, LDH more than 300 and rising in the last 24 hours, and D dimers more than 1 and rising in the last 24 hours, and CRP more than 70 and rising in the last 24 hours, then it carries more significance. But these values of different markers like ferritin, LDH, D dimer, and CRP, they have to be judged according to the specific lab which is doing that. So you need to know, because different labs are using different units for reporting them. So if any three are present on admission, there is no need to document rise. You have to treat the patient according to the clinical situation, whether it is moderate or whether it is severe or critical. So assessing the severity of the patient, we know that the patient are falling into 5 different categories. There is an asymptomatic phase, then mild, then moderate, then severe, and then critical. So asymptomatic are the patients which have got no symptoms. Mild are those which have got no hemodynamic derangement or compromise. Their saturation stays more than 94 on room air, and there is no chest X-ray finding. Moderate are the patients which have a saturation of more than 90, but less than 94 on room air. Their chest X-ray is less than 50% involved. The severe patients have pneumonia with respiratory distress, and the respiratory rate is more than 30. Saturation is less than 90 on room air, and the chest X-ray is more than 50% involved. And critical patients have usually ARDS or multi-organ failure, and they are in shock. So this is the stage probably where no treatment is likely to be effective. And the most effective treatment which can be given to these patients are, if you are able to identify, of course, asymptomatic patients also do not require any treatment. So just leave asymptomatic and the critical patients. Most important part would be to identify when a patient is entering from mild to moderate disease. So that is clinically very important as a treating physician, to identify when a patient enters from mild disease to moderate disease. Because from moderate to severe, if you are unable to identify a moderate disease, then from severe onward, the likely chances of patient survival keep on decreasing. So severity and immunity, if we can talk, then in the stage one, like in the initial pathophysiology, when I showed you the slide, it is the early infection phase where it is the viral response phase, and it is likely that only the symptoms which are produced are those due to active viral replication, which can be cough, which can be fever, which can also be fatigue or different other symptoms like sense of smell and taste and runny nose or nasal congestion, etc., or loose abdomen. But as the stage two patient enters the stage two, it is usually after the fifth day. Then, along with the viral response, the host inflammatory response, which is the cytokine release syndrome, it starts taking its effect. And it is this stage where the active, aggressive management is likely to give better results than delaying the things. And then in the stage three, there's no viral response, only the host inflammation response with the cytokine release syndrome. And it depends whether the patient is in the moderate, severe, or critical stage, what sort of infection can be. So here you can see that patients in the early symptomatic stage, they are only asymptomatic. And from here to here in stage two going, they may be mild, but usually these patients are moderate. But there is an overlap of the severe disease in the pulmonary phase. So you need to identify patient entering from mild to moderate for the treatment purposes. And if it is already delayed, then it may be severe or the critical phase of the treatment. Then likely that patients are not going to respond. And it's only the supportive treatment which can be given. Here for you, there is a chest X-ray, which you can see that uh, uh, there is involvement of both lungs. And there is a debate which we can do, but it is likely that both the bases of the lung as well as the mid lung fields, they are involved. So it looks like that this patient, just on the basis of the X-ray, has more than 50% involvement of the chest X-ray. There are no fluffy chateaus as such, but this X-ray suggests that it is likely that this may be more than 50% involvement of the lung fields, which, according to the definition, it is likely to be a severe case rather than a moderate case. Here again, in this X-ray, you can see there are different fluffy shadows, and you can see that there is involvement of both lung fields. They are scattered, and uh, to me, it looks like I have to correlate with the different markers as well. But X-ray looks like more than 50% involvement. So again, this X-ray suggests that this patient is either on the base, just based on the basis of X-ray, maybe more into the severe phase rather than in the moderate phase. In this CT slide, you can see that there is involvement of both lungs. It is scattered, and there is not much of an involvement of both lung fields. So this appears to be a mild case with less than 50% involvement. This may be moderate, but is definitely not more than 50% and not severe involvement of the CT. So talking of hypercoagulability in these patients, thrombotic events are noted in the autopsies. Similarly, higher rates of VTE and DVT are also noted, and elevated D dimers are usually associated with increased mortality. So there is no high quality studies for reducing the risk. This means that all patients who are diagnosed with COVID, they need some sort of management for the prevention of thromboembolic phenomena or hypercoagulable state. So talking of the management, moderate and beyond is where the treatment should be actively done. And here the patient should be admitted, oxygen therapy should be done, prone positioning according to the advice of the treating physician should be done, and prophylaxis with in moderate with enoxaparin 40 every 24 hour, or in severe or critical 40 every 12 hourly can be instituted, should be instituted. Labs should be done every 48 hours for clinical cytokine release storm markers. And this basically picture is uh, which I would like you to, this is one of the most important in understanding the corona management plan, that if the patient on admission is fulfilling the criteria of testing, then you need to know whether it is PCR positive or negative. If it is PCR negative, then retest if in high suspicion. And if the patient is PCR positive, then start assessing the severity of the patient. So if the PCR is negative, and then you need to see that there is whether there is any hemodynamic compromise, is whether there is a need for oxygen or chest X-ray shows any finding, or that the oxygen saturation, whether it is maintained above 94. And here these patients are basically put into either asymptomatic or mild. And the management would be that these patients should stay home or in isolation facility, and supportive care should be given to these patients, and they should be given the numbers to call if the symptoms are worsening. So here comes the role of telemedicine, that they should inform about their running condition, but the physician should first be able to assess the patient thoroughly before they are putting any red alarms. So if the saturation in these patients is less than 94 but greater than 90 on room air, then you need to see the chest X-ray, whether it is less than 50% involved or more than 50%. For less than 50%, it is moderate disease. You need to keep them in hospital, give oxygen via the nasal cannula or face mask, prone positioning, and enoxaparin should be added to these patients. And if similarly these patients are worsening, then you can discuss about the giving of the convalescent plasma or remdesivir. But here, the role of CRS treatment, which first includes steroid, is very significant. And similarly, if the patients are not responding to steroids, then tocilizumab can be tried if severe, or there is a failure to steroids. So in severe patients, as we have already discussed, the respiratory rate is more than 30 with severe respiratory distress. Saturation is less than 90 on room air, and chest X-ray is more than 50% involved, or the patient is already in ARDS or multi-organ dysfunction or shock. And these patients are severe or critical. They require hospital HDUs or ICUs, and oxygen should be given via nasal cannula or intubated prone positioning. Enoxaparin should be started, and then the same management plan can be given to these patients also, like convalescent plasma or remdesivir. But the role of steroids again is becoming more and more important for symptomatic release in these patients. But this is not. This is just supportive treatment to let them out of the condition that they are suffering from at that point in time. So the principles of treatment are mainly supportive. Then there is role of anticoagulation. Then there is role of antivirals as well. But this is just to decrease the number of days of viral infection. There is no prognostic benefit. Then there is anti-CRS treatment, which includes steroids and tocilizumab. And then there is again other immune therapies like convalescent plasma, but again, they do not improve the prognosis, but of course the symptomatic relief, giving some passive immunization to the patient to benefit fighting against the active infection. So talking of diabetes in these patients, so it's really a difficult topic because there is not much available on the different websites, as well as different societies haven't been able to come up with a significant conclusion, because the disease is new and the data keeps on coming and new things are being discovered about this virus. So as long as the pathophysiology of the diabetes in corona is concerned, we do not know exactly what is happening. But we do know that what already we know, that if someone is already a known diabetic, then this can be a poor control can be because of an acute response due to viral replication or host inflammatory response, leading on to different release of chemicals in the body, which can act and increase the blood sugar level. Or it can be due to the result of different drugs which are being used, like already discussed, that the steroids being given to these patients. So this results in basically rise in the blood sugar level in these patients. But in addition to that, we have seen new onset diabetes as well. We do not know exactly what is the mechanism being involved in this, but this is likely due to destruction of the beta cells due to the virus, just like influenza leading to beta cell dysfunction and in young patients becoming diabetic after the upper respiratory infection. So, what are the management guidelines for someone who is diabetic and is suffering from coronavirus? So, patients, it has been seen that they are more likely to suffer because of the comorbidity. So, patients need to be aware about the modes of spread and features of the disease. And similarly, the severity of infection should be assessed immediately in these patients, in every patient, but especially in these patients because they are at high risk. And then what to do if chance of infection? They should not rush to hospital. They should adopt the telemedicine option, go into quarantine, avoid virus by sensible measures like hand washing, sharing food, and cough etiquettes, etc. And some home-based exercises to increase their immunity. And unless they are suffering from some grievous symptoms and they need to contact the doctor. So you need to confirm the virus presence in them, get contact of the relevant medical personnel, and they should fulfill all the quarantine requirements and observe the sick day rules, which includes that they should stay adequately hydrated. They should monitor their blood glucose more closely during the sick days so that they should know what is happening with the blood glucose level. They should monitor their temperature as well as saturation, as well as respiratory rate, heart rate, and their blood pressures as well. They should avoid starting some oral drugs. Like the most notorious, which has been mentioned, is that starting SGLT2 during this period should be avoided because, as we know, that it can lead to glycosuria. So there will be a lot of wrong messages being given because of these drugs, and they can also lead to weight loss. So these drugs should be avoided. You should be one should be avoiding starting SGLT2 during this drug. In addition, because the chances of ketoacidosis are also there, so start preferably insulin should be given in these patients. But if someone is using an oral hypoglycemic and it is effectively being controlled, then probably there is no need to change the medicine, especially with the sulfonylureas. There is no harm if the patient is being controlled and is actively using them, and the blood sugar monitoring suggests that his control is adequate. So monitor the ketones if the patient is insulin dependent, and follow the recommendations of your doctor strictly. So with this, I come to the conclusion, and I would request Sadia to take over so that we can discuss about the different cases. Sadia, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And if you just unshare your screen so that I can see the case number 1. So clearly, everyone can see the case number 1 now.
सादिया ऑल्सो शेयर ना प्लीज अपनी शेयर कर दीजिएगा जो आपने इसका लिंक है.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna share that in the chat box.
I would request all the participants कि सादिया जब ये शेयर करती हैं तो इस पे क्लिक कर लीजिएगा. इनका मकसद सिर्फ इसका ये है कि आप क्लिक करके और इसको पढ़ के, this is a 65-year-old male who is a known diabetic and for 15 years, hypertensive for 10 years, having a poor control, and 10-day history of fever, cough, and fatigue, and developed shortness of breath for 2 days with cold peripheral. The blood pressure is 100/70, heart rate is 110 per minute, and temperature is 100 with a respiratory rate of 24. Saturation not being was not measured, and gets short of breath on minimal exertion to the toilet, with a TLC count of 17,000, CRP 102, ferritin 660, and D dimers 1200. So we just want to know that what is the risk in this patient, whether this is a asymptomatic, mild, moderate, and severe. And I would request Sadia, if you can all attempt that, we would be able to see the responses in everyone, so that we are able to.
So the link has been shared in the chat box, and you people can click the link. Oh, there is one response, and I'm gonna paste it again. So one of the doctors said that the link is not working. Dr. Faisal Javed, I repaste the link, and now you can see that. So you people can see the responses. So there is one response for mild and two responses for severe. Two for mild and two for severe. So I would request everyone to kindly click the link and submit your answers.
So after a minute, I will start discussing this case, because I want.
Would you tell me how to click the mild or moderate or severe? It's maybe case of the severe.
You can, Dr. Saab, you can click the link and आप उसमें जो है वो अपना कर सकते हैं. So sir, I think there are 13 responses, and now we can discuss this.
Okay, then. So here we can see that this patient is a patient with known comorbidities. The duration of his disease is around 10 days. So he is beyond that the viral replication phase, and he's still having symptoms. The worsening thing is that he has got shortness of breath with symptoms of shock, and his temperature is still on the higher side. Respiratory rate is high. There are few things which are not being measured in this patient, because this was actual patient which came to the outdoor. So we can see that the white cell count is very high, as well was the CRP and ferritin level and D dimers. So this suggests that there appears to be a secondary infection as well going on in this patient, or this may be due to the cytokine storm that this patient is having worsening. So he appears to be, there's no chest X-ray available. So just on the basis of these findings, this patient with the cold peripheries looks like into either a multi-organ failure or shock, or at least it is far beyond the moderate phase. So he either may be in the severe phase or the critical phase, with all the inflammatory markers on the higher side. So I hope, but of course we can disagree with the findings which I have said, but it is likely that this patient is suffering from either severe disease or a critical disease for the case 1. So Sadia, can we share the case 2 now?
Yes, sir.
So here we can see, Sadia, can you put the link?
Yes, sir. First, I'm going to put the link. So here is the link in your chat box for the second case, and here you can see.
So if you can click on the forms once again. And you can see that this is now the patient is 38, male, with no comorbidities. Fever duration is 10 days with sore throat, cough, running nose, gets short of breath on exertion, with a respiratory rate of 20 per minute. His heart rate is 90, blood pressure is 130/85, and temperature is 101. His saturation is 97%. Chest X-ray shows less than 50% lung infiltrates. CRP is 6, ferritin 190, and D dimers are 350. So again, you just need to click and find out that and give your suggestion that which stage of the disease patient is at the
So, till time we just have one response. So kindly click on the link which I have shared in the chat box now so that we can get the results. Kindly keep your mic.
So we have some more answers now.
Yes.
So here probably majority of the people have said that more answers are for the
Or moderate.
moderate.
There are,
So
yes,
that's
there are
good. That's good. Probably we are more,
5 now for
yeah,
the moderate.
we are more able to identify the correct stage the disease is in the patient, and so that's good. I think we can. This is very suggestive in this patient that because of the chest X-ray which was visible and the inflammatory markers which were there, so it looks like more like that the patient is in the moderate stage of the disease. And here actually the intensification of the treatment is going to benefit the patient more than anything else, and probably he is going to benefit a lot if the different treatment regimes are started in this patient. Right, Ji, can we move on to the next
Third.
question?
Yes.
So case 3 is there. Sadia, can you share the link?
Yes, sir, I have shared the link, and here you can see the case 3 on the screen. This is the case 3.
So the case 3 is that the patient is a 66-year-old male. He's type 2 diabetic of 5 years duration, hypertension for last 3 years. He is having an adequate control. Fever for last 7 days, cough, sore throat, fatigue, and shortness of breath are present. Heart rate is 100 per minute. Saturation was not checked. Blood pressure was normal. Temperature was 100, and the respiratory rate was 24 per minute. Chest X-ray was normal. CRP was mildly raised. D dimers were 700. Ferritin was 600. So you can click on the correct option that you think is so we do not have a chest X-ray present in this patient. No, sorry, chest X-ray was normal in this patient.
The one response is for mild and 2 for severe. I would request that participants to kindly mute their mic.
So just consider that this patient has a fever duration of 7 days, and he is having a normal chest X-ray, and you can see that his saturation was not done, but his respiratory rate was 24. So respiratory rate was high, and then his TLC count was also on the higher side, and his inflammatory markers were also high. So here we can see that majority of the people have clicked onto the severe, and then which is followed by the moderate. So here we can see that because one of the finding that the chest X-ray, as we discussed in the presentation, is not very good in picking up the different abnormalities, and you may be missing. And HRCT is probably the best investigation to do in these patients. But because the inflammatory markers are a little on the higher side, the respiratory rate of the patient is on the higher side, and not all the parameters are present, which are suggesting that patient may be in shock condition. So this looks more like maybe on either a moderate or a severe case. So this is, I think, majority of the people have been able to pick up, but the likely chances of severe are relatively less. As far as I can comment here in this case, but there are inflammatory parameters which are on the higher side. When we discussed that which parameters along with the physical signs are going to suggest that this patient is severe or not. So saturation, shortness of breath, and along with that, the inflammatory markers, they are going to suggest about the severity. So this more likely to be in the late moderate phase, or maybe entering into the critical phase with a chest X-ray not suggestive of any abnormality. ठीक है जी?
Sorry for
सादिया?
interruption. मैं क्लिक नहीं कर सकता हूँ. अगर मैं वर्बली जो है मतलब बता दूं फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट पे तो
ये तो आप चैट बॉक्स में बेशक अपना जो है वो टाइप कर दीजिए आंसर, बट वर्बली चूंकि देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ पार्टिसिपेंट्स तो वो थोड़ा सा मिसमैनेज हो जाएगा. You can write in the chat box your answers. So this is the time for the fourth, sir.
जी.
So here is the link for the fourth case. Kindly respond to the case.
So the fourth case is the patient is 55. He is a diabetic for 20 years, hypertensive for 15 years, having a poor control. He's a doctor. And his fever was present for last 10 days with cough, shortness of breath, and fatigue. Heart rate was 110, respiratory rate was 20, temperature was 100, and the blood pressure was within normal range. Saturation was 97. His ferritin was 40, was 600, CRP was 40, and D dimers were 800. His chest X-ray suggested less than 50% involvement, and his HRCT was also done, which was more than 50%, and a repeat HRCT was done after a few days, which suggested a progression of the lung lesions on the chest X-ray. So what do you suggest is the stage of this patient?
So here are
this
the
may
responses.
be cytokine storms or severe condition.
So I think the participants are, because they are more becoming aware of the process, how to vote. The responses are coming more quickly now, mashallah.
Yes.
And here we can see the responses from different participants. Almost all of the answers, that's good. All of the answers are either in the moderate or in the severe phase. And I totally agree, because we can go into the discussion, but there is no one suggesting that this is a mild case. So definitely this is either a moderate case or a severe case, which requires probably an intensification of treatment, so that we can start and the patient symptoms can regress with the passage of time. Let me tell you, these are all real cases which we handled in our either outpatients or in the wards. So I think we can move on to the next case.
Yes, sir.
Case number 5.
Yes, sir.
So if we can share the link.
Yes. So this is the link for the case number 5, and you can respond now. This is the case.
So case number 5 says that this is a 80-year-old male, known diabetic, hypertensive, and CRF. He has a fever of 7 days, nausea, cough, dyspnea on exertion, and his temperature was 101, heart rate was 90, saturation was 97% on room air, and his blood pressure was 135/80, and respiratory rate was 23 per minute. Patient already took azithromycin 250 OD for 7 days and betnisol 0.5 milligram 3 times a day for 5 days. His cough syrup, along with a cough syrup and antihistamine. His chest X-ray suggested less than 50% involvement. His D-dimers were 590. His ferritin was 515. TLC was 10.4. And the neutrophil 6.9. And his LDH was 304 and CRP was 13.27. So what do you suggest this patient could be? In which stage he is likely to be?
More responses are for moderate to severe, and there is one response for critical.
Here you can see a difference because this patient has already taken an antibiotic, and also he is on steroid. So presence of steroid already suggests that it is difficult to measure the neutrophil lymphocyte ratio in this patient. So a high neutrophil count probably becomes insignificant in this patient. Presence of a chest X-ray less than 50% in the background that he has already taken antibiotic and steroid suggests that probably he was in a much worse situation when this treatment was started. We don't know about any other uh, uh, inflammatory parameters, but even at this stage, the inflammatory parameters are on the higher side. So definitely at this stage, patient is in moderate and requires intensive treatment. But probably it looks like that when treatment was initiated, if it was not initiated earlier on, he would have gone into the severe phase. So I think the majority of the people who have answered, they are between the moderate and severe, and I think it is more in the moderate and the severe phase that this patient is right now in this point in time when he consulted us in the outdoor department. Sadia, can we share the case number 6?
Yes, sir. I'm gonna share that. Your chat box, here is the link for the question, case number 6. You people can answer that.
So case number 6 is that this patient is a 52-year-old male with no comorbidities. He has a 3-day history of nausea, loose stool, loss of appetite, feverish feeling, but they were not recorded. He had fatigue with smell alteration. His heart rate was 98, respiratory rate 18, temperature 101, blood pressure was 100/60, and saturation was 97% on room air. Labs with 3 days interval. CRP decreased from 0.66 to 0.2. TLC increased from 4.8 to 5. Platelets, they increased from 90 to 100. And neutrophil counts were 45 and 42. Lymphocytes were 45 and 42. Ferritin was 158 and then 255. T-dimers were less than 0.2 and went on to 0.1 after 3 to 4 days interval. RT-PCR was positive for corona and chest X-ray was normal. Initially, he took ciprofloxacin for 2 days and left due to increasing nausea. Frequency of stool was 2 to 3 per day, and they were small, formed, and crampy abdominal pain was present, and the nausea was improving. So what do you think, which stage of the disease this patient is at the moment? So here I can see that there are few which are suggestive that this patient is, so at least majority of the people are correctly identifying that this patient is in the mild stage. Of course, he has symptoms. He cannot be in the asymptomatic stage of the disease, but he he is in the mild stage because all other than the corona PCR, which was positive in this patient, his X-ray, his respiratory rate, his saturations were all normal, and his inflammatory parameters, some of them were on the decreasing trend and some of them were on the rising. So this patient was having mild symptomatology and he was in the mild stage of the disease. He just required observation and no just symptomatic treatment for whatever symptoms he had, and no aggressive management was required in this patient. So I think majority of the patients of the participants have correctly identified. So case number 7 now. This is the last case. After which, if there are any questions, Sadia, can you please moderate with us?
Yes, sir. So the 7th question, the case link has been shared in your chat box.
So this is a 53-year-old male with no comorbidities. Fever was present for 9 days, cough, nausea, smell alteration, sore throat, and abdominal pain. Heart rate was 110, respiratory rate was 22, temperature was 100, and blood pressure was 140/90 with saturation 95% on room air. Labs with 3 days interval was CRP was in the decreasing trend 10 to 8. TLC was in the rising trend 4.1 to 5. His platelets improved from 70 to 150, neutrophils 75 to 82, lymphocytes 15 to 12. Ferritin decreased from 458 to 355, and TLC count, D dimers also decreased from 250 to 200, and RT-PCR was positive for corona. Chest X-ray was normal. He initially took Azomax 500 for 3 days, and completed 5 days course. Frequency of stool was 6 to 7 per day, and took entamizole for it for last 2 days, and nausea kept on improving. So whatever you think is the right answer, please click so that we can. Right. So I think we are on the same page, Alhamdulillah, and I think the objectives of this lecture are achieved. That this patient also does not suggest any significant pathology, but he probably requires very close monitoring still, because he may move on to the moderate stage, and it is, as we discussed, that it is very important to identify the progression of the disease from mild to moderate, so that we can identify and uh, intensify the treatment as as uh, as soon as it is possible. So with this, I think we come to the conclusion, and if there are any suggestions, any comments, anything that we can learn from any participant, the forum, I think, Sadia, can you please moderate them?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for such an excellent presentation and such an informative session. And the house is open for questions. So you can type your question in the chat box, or else you can unmute yourself and definitely ask to the Dr. Sahab directly. So everyone is just appreciating that it was a brilliant session and clear messages to identify the severity. So you can see the messages, sir, in the chat box.
साजिया आप उनको अलाउ कर दें, अगर माइक अगर कोई बोलना चाहे कोई बात.
Sir, anybody can unmute themselves and ask the questions. So I would request all the doctors, if you have any question, you can just unmute your mic and ask the question directly to the doctor.
There is one question from Dr. Mohsin that I can see. He wants to know that what was the outcome of these patients, regarding the outcome of these patients. So Alhamdulillah, every patient is doing fine. There was no mortality. At least in these patients that I can tell you. And I don't want to name people, but they are all very high five. Probably few of them you may be knowing. I've just answered this to Mohsin,
Yes.
because
So Dr. Mohsen has another question. That do you ever
yes, his question is whether do you ever measure interleukin 6? Not in our setup, because I haven't measured this, but of course it is available only at very few centers in Lahore. We haven't measured it.
The next question is, what is the role of NOVAC? Dr. Mohsen wants to ask.
Mohsen, I don't know. Can you please elaborate it?
Dr. Mohsen, you can
unmute and.
Dr. Mohsen, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me? It's still a morning here, so I'm still in my bed. Really
Okay.
brilliant, Imran. I'm so impressed. Clear and a purposeful discussion. I was interested in the role of Novak as giving the heparin subcutaneous at time requires a clarity and diligence, but the Novak probably can be given orally, and this oral anticoagulant probably standing a role there. So just wanted to
मोहसिन, आप
highlight
नोवैक अगर ट्रेड नेम ले रहे हैं तो आपको मुझे दवा का नाम बताएंगे?
The Xarelto, like a Xarelto.
Xarelto. We do give Xarelto. Or in prophylactic stage, I mean, where I have written that enoxaparin 40 milligram, we use about between 10 to 15. I usually give 10 milligram. And if therapeutic dose is required, then we usually give 10 milligram BD or 20 milligram OD. So usually I prescribe 10 milligram BD in patients with moderate to severe disease where I think the disease is progressing.
Fantastic. So Imran, we found that the not only all this improving the comorbidity, you didn't mention, or you did come across quite a severely uncontrolled diabetic patient. Did you really institute insulin into those critical stages, or you don't think insulin has a role there?
Mohsin, the experience regarding use and control of diabetes is very subjective to the patients. I I just go and see the patients and decide what the patient desires are, and then decide accordingly. My preference is that they should be on insulin during this period. But of course, there are people around who do not want insulin, and they just want to continue with whatever treatment they are on. Of course, if there is no contraindication, then admitted patient with close monitoring or non-admitted patients with close monitoring, I do not interfere. I mean, I remember a patient where with every steroid injection, he had a rise in his blood sugar profile. He tried everything. And this is one of the patients which I have already mentioned here. He tried everything. And in the end, he stick to what I said to him, that with every meal, or after every injection of the steroid, he can take a insulin analog, ultra short acting, for the control, and just monitor and see whether his routine drug should be continued, which was one of the sulfonylureas he was taking regularly. And he was very comfortable, and he never wanted to change any of his medication. So probably the experience with every patient is different. So it probably goes with what patients are actually what I mean. I personally do not push for things unless there is an absolute contraindication to whatever medication he's on.
That's perfect, fantastic. And Imran, I'm kind of consuming most of your discussion, but tell me, did you get you didn't mention in your cases, but did you get a chance, or is there the antibody testing reliable in your hospital, or is it all private based, kind of Shaukat Khanum or Chugtai lab basis antibodies?
Antibody testing initially, in at least in Lahore, what I know is that it's more of a lucrative option for the private labs. Hospitals are the most of the government hospitals are still not providing, or at least if they are present, they are present for some of the centers where the research work is being done for the convalescent plasma, so that the patients with a high antibody titer can be included. But not all of the government
Sorry, is the day session finished, or?
It's still on, but we just got disconnected, and Dr. is going to connect that again.
Oh, thank you very much. Really, I don't want to consume all of your discussion. Kind of anybody else, if you want to go ahead. Otherwise, I have plenty of learning to learn from Imran.
It's been really wonderful, Dr. Mohsen. Your comments and your participation have been wonderful. The presentation has been wonderful by Dr. Imran. Dr. Altaf from Faisalabad, Pakistan.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Imran is going to join us again in a second. Maybe he'll get disconnected.
Imran joins.
May I ask one question, if you are not mind? Hello?
जी सर, what were you saying? Sorry.
मैं एक क्वेश्चन पूछ सकता हूँ आप लोगों से, क्योंकि जो है मुझे क्लिक करना जो है नहीं आता था। मैं आप लोगों को ये कह रहा था कि मैं अगर क्लिक नहीं कर सकता हूँ तो ऑप्शन को अगर वर्बली में आप लोगों को बोलूं।
Yes, sir.
तो
Dr. Imran is here and you can ask your question now.
اچھا کوشچن کر سکتا ہوں ابھی آپ سے
جی
آپ لوگوں سے
جی
اچھا
بالکل سر.
میرا کوشچن یہ ہے 2 کوشچن ہیں. ایک کوشچن یہ ہے کہ اگر کووڈ انفیکشن ہو اس سے امپروو ہو جائے بعد میں کیا ری انفیکشن ہو سکتا ہے آفٹر 2 اور 3 منتھ اگر اے سمپٹومیٹک پہلے انفیکٹڈ ہو پھر بعد میں اس سے امپروو ہو جائے اور اس کے بعد جو ہے مطلب کوئی انفیکشن چانسز انفیکشن ہو سکتا ہے یا نہیں اور سیوریٹی کنڈیشن ہوگا اس سے جو ہے موٹیلٹی آئی ہوگی یا کم. 1 کوشچن یہ ہے. یہ دوسرا کوشچن میرا یہ ہے کہ اگر یہ ایئر پہ جو ہے ڈیفنس کراتا ہے اس کا کیا میکینزم ہے؟ ہیلو آپ لوگ مجھے سن رہے ہیں؟
آپ کا سر میں پہلا سوال کا جو سمجھ سکتا ہوں وہ یہ کہ ری انفیکشن ہو سکتا ہے کرونا کا یا نہیں ہو سکتا یہی ہے نا آپ کا پہلا سوال.
مطلب کہ یہ کہ پہلے انفیکشن اگر ہوا ہو اے سمپٹومیٹک ہو تو بعد میں جو ہے اینٹی باڈیز ویک بن رہا ہو اس کے دوران جو ہے انفیکشن ہو سکتا ہے اور وہ انفیکشن سیوریٹی انفیکشن ہوگا. کیا یہ صحیح ہے؟
سر دیکھیں ہمارے پاس جتنی انفارمیشن ہے کرونا کے بارے میں نا وہ ڈپینڈ کیونکہ دس از اے نوول کرونا وائرس سو انفارمیشن وی ہیو از ویری لمیٹڈ تھنگس مے بی ریویلڈ ان فیوچر دیٹ تھنگس مے بی ڈفرنٹ واٹ وی آر انڈرسٹینڈنگ رائٹ ناؤ بٹ اپ ٹل ناؤ جہاں تک ری انفیکشن کی بات ہے اس کے بارے میں انیشلی کچھ رپورٹس لٹریچر میں تھیں فرام ساؤتھ کوریا which were proven wrong. Second is regarding a doctor sahab who is already probably working in PIC and he's a cardiothoracic surgeon. So I don't recall his name, lekin wo PKLI mein shayad admitted bhi rahe. But the doctors treating over there have reservation whether this is a reinfection or this is a continuation of the same infection which wasn't cleared in his case. So up till now, it is not proven in his case at least that it is a reinfection. ہم جانتے ہیں کتنے لاکھوں پیشنٹ کو بیکاز آج صبح ہی جو میں سن رہا تھا وہ یہ کہ غالباً جو WHO ہے اس کی ویب سائٹ کے مطابق بھی 1 کروڑ کی یعنی 10 ملین کو ہم کراس کر چکے ہیں غالباً ورلڈ وائڈ فگر کو. سو اس میں سے کتنے پیشنٹ ایسے ہیں جنہیں کرونا ایک دفعہ ہونے کے بعد دوبارہ ہوا ہم یہ کسی مطلب خال مریضی کی بات کریں گے کہ جس کو اگر ہوا بھی ہے تو اٹ ہیز ٹو بی ڈاکومنٹڈ ان لٹریچر بیفور اٹ از ایکسیپٹیبل ٹو ایوری باڈی کہ ہاں یہ ری انفیکشن ہو سکتا ہے. ہم اس پہ بات ضرور کر سکتے ہیں کہ کرونا کی جو IgG اینٹی باڈیز ہیں وہ پرابیبلی ابھی تک صرف یہی سجیسٹ کرتی ہیں کہ پیشنٹ کا ایکسپوجر ہو چکا ہے وہ بھی یہ سجیسٹ نہیں کر رہی ہیں کہ اس کی وجہ سے وی نیڈ فردر ورک ٹو پروو دیٹ ویدر دے کنفر امیونٹی ٹو دا پرسن ہو ہیز بین انفیکٹڈ اور ناٹ. سو آئی تھنک اٹ از ٹو ارلی ٹو سے اور اگر کوئی پرسنٹیج ہے بھی ایسے مریضوں کی تو وہ پرابیبلی اتنی نیگلیجبل ہے کہ ہماری ابھی تک گراسلی نظر سے گزر نہیں رہی ہے. سو اٹ ہیز ٹو بی پروون کہ اس کو اگر اے سمپٹومیٹک پہلے ہوا ہے تو دوبارہ سے جو انفیکشن ہوا ہے وہ سمپٹومیٹک ہو. سو آئی تھنک یہ اس میں بہت سی باتیں ایسی ہیں جو پرابیبلی مشکل ہوگا کہ اس کو پروف کیا جا سکے. دوسرا سوال آپ کا کیا تھا؟ سر آپ کا دوسرا سوال کیا تھا جی؟
وہ تو یہ ہے کہ ڈیفنس جو ہے مطلب یہ اس کا کیا میکینزم ہے. لاسٹلی جو ایک کوشچن ہے یہ امپورٹنٹ ہے میرے لیے کہ اگر یہ کورونا وائرس انفیکشن لگ بھی جائے. اچھا سیکنڈ کوشچن میرا یہ تھا کہ ڈیفنس جو ہے مطلب کیا میکینزم ہے کہ ڈیفنس بھی ہو جاتا ہے. ڈیفنس ہو جاتا ہے.
سر سوال آپ کا
اچھا میرا دوسرا کوشچن کو میں چھوڑ دیتا ہوں کہ یہ کہ جو کورونا وائرس کا انفیکشن ہو جائے تو چیسٹ کے لیے کس زون پہ لوور زون پہ جو ہے مطلب یہ افیکٹ کرتا ہے
کا انفیکشن ہو جائے تو
चेस्ट पे, लंग्स
आपका
पे,
सवाल मुझे
कौन से जोन पे जो है एक्ट करता है? लोअर जोन पे जो है ज्यादा से ज्यादातर जो है लोअर जोन
एरिया
पे
को इन्वॉल्व ज्यादा करेगा?
नहीं सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि अगर इन्फेक्शन हो जाए, कोविड का इन्फेक्शन हो जाए, तो चेस्ट के जो रेडियोलॉजिस्ट जो है, मतलब अगर एक्सरे को रीड करता है, तो वो लोअर जोन को पहले डिफेक्ट करता है या अपर और मिड जोन को? आप लंग के किस पोर्शन को जो है डिफेक्ट करता है, ज्यादा ओपेसिटी चांसेस बनता है? यू
तो
गेट
मैं इसके बारे में आपको जो पबमेड पे छपी हुई कुछ स्टडीज हैं उनका रेफरेंस तो दे सकता हूँ, लेकिन बिकॉज आई एम नॉट अ रेडियोलॉजिस्ट आई कैन नॉट कमेंट विद अथॉरिटी ऑन दिस। लेकिन देखा ये गया है कि देर आर डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ फाइंडिंग्स विच अपीयर एंड ऑब्वियसली इट डिपेंड्स ऑन, और वो स्कैटर्ड होती हैं। देर इज लाइकली के ग्राउंड ग्लास अपीयरेंस होगी and all is because of the microemboli which are occurring. So वो peripheries के ऊपर lung के usually पहले होती हैं. So this is not in keeping with any of the previous theories. और जो दूसरी इसके अलावा हैं वो ये कि radio opaque shadows हैं जो scattered हैं and different areas of the lung पे हैं, and not usually कि वो restrict होते हों bases of the lung पे या apices of the lung पे या किसी एक particular zone में. They are scattered just like scattered all over the lung. So unilateral भी हैं findings, bilateral भी हैं HRCT के ऊपर findings. So it is really difficult for me at the moment to say कि क्योंकि मैं radiologist नहीं हूँ कि ये किस वजह से हुई है और इसकी जो खुसूसियत से कोई special predilection towards part of the lung है या नहीं.
इमरान अगर इजाजत दें तो मैं आप दो चीजें ऐड कर सकूं.
जी 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 जरूर.
So एक तो जिस तरह डॉक्टर ने पूछा है, ये हमें इनिशियल डाटा था कि kind of predilection है towards the lower zone and the right side mid zone were very early characteristically involved. इंटरेस्टिंग चीजें दो सिर्फ ऐड करना चाहता हूँ, आपके लम्बे तो हैं लेकिन बाकी पार्टिसिपेंट इसको एंजॉय करेंगे, कि कोविड की जो इन्वॉल्वमेंट है रेडियोलॉजिकली, उसमें इंटरेस्टिंगली प्लूरल इफ्यूजन हमें ना होने के बराबर देखने को मिली है. ये एक प्रोबब्ली इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है हमें मालूम करने के लिए कि अगर ये बैक्टीरियल कंसोलिडेशन है जिसके साथ आपकी प्लूरल रिएक्शन आ जाता है, और इसी तरह से हार्ट फेलियर से हमें वो डिलीनिएट करने में मदद देती है. इसी तरह हमें लिम्फ नोड्स की इन्वॉल्वमेंट भी जो पैरास्टर्नल और ये जो हाइलाइट लिम्फ नोड्स हैं उनकी इन्वॉल्वमेंट भी बहुत ही कम मिली है, ना होने के बराबर मिली है. So that was something very interesting. It's all the way the fluffy shadows and the interstitial pattern along with this ground glass appearance. So सब कुछ पैटर्न हमें ये देखने को मिल रहे हैं जब सब प्लूरल एरिया की इन्वॉल्वमेंट है पेरिफेरी में. So अगर ये डॉक्टर साहब की बात को इन्वॉल्व कर सके कि जो अपर लोब्स हैं वो लेस एरेटेड हैं, प्रॉब्ली वहाँ पे इसकी प्रेडिक्शन कम है. थैंक यू.
Here is another question, sir. Dr. Mohammed Iqbal is want to ask that what would be the role of metformin in COVID-19 as the antiviral activity and anti-inflammatory property according to the new data published in Medscape?
दोबारा से सवाल पूछिएगा जरा.
So Dr. Mohammed Iqbal wants to ask what would be the role of metformin in COVID-19 infection as of its antiviral activity and anti-inflammatory property according to the new data published in Medscape.
मेरे इल्म में नहीं है, डॉक्टर साहब के इल्म में है तो वो बताएं.
So Dr. Iqbal, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question if you want to.
अस्सलामुअलैकुम सर. ये मेड्सकेप पे लास्ट वीक पे ये डाटा शेयर किया गया है कि मेटफॉर्मिन के अंदर जो इसकी एंटी इन्फ्लेमेटरी प्रॉपर्टीज भी हैं और एंटी वायरल इफेक्ट भी हैं, तो इट कुड हेल्प द प्रोग्रेशन ऑफ कोविड इन्फेक्शंस, आई मीन टू रिलीव द पेशेंट. ये मैं लास्ट वीक पे एक आर्टिकल पढ़ा था इसके मेड्सकेप के ऊपर.
سر میں اس کے بارے میں کوئی کمنٹ کرنے سے قاصر ہوں.
تھینک یو سر.
میں
سر
علم
جب
اس
آپ
بارے میں
پہ
نہیں.
نظر سے گزرا تو سر تھوڑا سا اس پہ روشنی ڈالیے گا, انشاءاللہ نیکسٹ کسی اسپیچ میں دیکھ لیں گے.
جی ضرور, جی ضرور.
تھینک یو.
So I think everything is clear now. Or any other questions? I think Dr. has briefly discussed every question and a very good presentation as well. And after that, so thank you so much, sir, for an excellent presentation, and we appreciate the time you took for a wonderful sharing of this outstanding presentation with us. And I would appreciate and thankful to all the participants who actively and effectively participate in this session. Indeed, it was such an informative session for all of us and for all the doctors. Thank you so much from our side on behalf of Servier. And thank you for all the participants. So if you want to say anything in the
Sadia,
end. So
one
Yes, sir.
request. Okay, if you have recorded this session, so kindly if you can share it with the participants, so it would be very beneficial.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You people can contact us and just have to provide us your email address so that I can share the recording with you. The whole session has been recorded.
اپنا آپ ای میل ایڈریس ان کو دے دو یا whatever link is appropriate وہ اس میں لکھ دو تاکہ یہ ان لوگوں میں سے جو بھی آپ کو کانٹیکٹ کرنا چاہے.
Sir, I'm just writing that. So here is my email address. So you people can just send me, and after that I can send you the recording of the whole session.
شادیہ بھی آیا نہیں ہے آپ کا میرا خیال ہے.
So chat box میں I have shared.
اچھا چلو پلیز میرے پاس نہیں ہے.
آپ چیٹ باکس دیکھیے, آپ دیکھیے سر.
مجھے نظر نہیں آیا, بہرحال آپ نے شیئر کر دیا ہوگا, مجھے نہیں
Yes,
پتا
sir.
چل سکا.
Yes, sir. I have shared. میرے پاس ڈاکٹر عرفان کا بھی آ گیا, so ڈاکٹر عرفان surely I'll share that with you. So thank you so much, sir. I think this is the time to end the session now. And thank you for an excellent presentation. And we want the closing remarks from your side. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
آپ مجھ سے کہہ رہی ہو؟
جی sir. Sir, actually, I think all the questions has been met اور آپ نے بہت اچھے سے answers بھی سب کو دیے. It was an excellent presentation. And
بس
on behalf
میں شکریہ ادا کرنا چاہوں گا تمام پارٹیسپینٹس کا, اور دوسرے میں درخواست کرنا چاہوں گا سب سے کہ وہ کل میرے ماموں کا انتقال ہوا ہے, تو ان کے لیے جن لوگوں نے بعد میں جوائن کیا ہے وہ ایک مرتبہ سورہ فاتحہ اور 3 مرتبہ سورہ اخلاص پڑھ کے ضرور ان کی بخشش کے لیے دعا کرتے ہیں. بہت شکریہ.
Thank you so much, sir. With this, we will end this session. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much, Imran. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Hussain and Imran. It's been really wonderful.